Hi, this is the tutorial for the high collar of the Barenaked Shoulders top from Stonepoint and Jones. This is a mini so that you can see it in screen with detail. So the neckline wouldn't be quite as many arches across. And so to give you a sense, here's the sleeves, here's the armhole opening, here's the top of the shoulder. On the other side, same thing, top of the shoulder. This is the underarm for the blue. The pink is the tapered part for the underarm. And then this is the back neck of the garment, and here is the front chest mesh. So here we are with this. Remember, the front is wider than the back. Here's your chest mesh. And for those of you that did a low collar, you continued around and didn't cut and tie. For the high collar, you needed to cut and tie at this attachment round. This is the chain 7 that you did previously. Now these are going to be a little different for the different sizes. The collar is worked, the high collar is worked the same, but where you attach it in the back. So we are on the back. We have a center marker. Now your center marker may be, if your center marker is on we're going to be leaving a part of this open so your head fits through and make a keyhole opening, and I'll show you what I mean. So if your center marker is at a full arch, see these 3 single crochet arches, you're going to put your you're going to attach your yarn on one side or the other. If your center marker is like this and it's between arches, which most of them will be, but not all of them will be between arches, you're going to want to attach your yarn in the center of one of these 2 arches, whether you're left or right-handed. Attach your yarn that way. Now we're going to be going around, all the way around, coming back to here, then going back around. So these are not rounds, these are rows. Okay, so our row will begin here, go all the way around, but it will end here and then go back around. And that's how that's going to work, so that we have a keyhole opening and we can put so we have an opening so that we can put a button there. And whoa, okay, so we're going to attach our yarn. So it will be here or here if your center is between 2 arches. If your center isn't between 2 arches, then we're going to have a full arch on either side, and we're going to attach our yarn here or here. So basically we kind of want 2 or 3 stitches in between, but we need it centered. If it's not perfectly centered, you know, just eyeball it and fix it so that it turns out so that it's between an arch or on an arch. So do a square knot, and then put your hook through, pull up a loop. Okay, so now we're going to be making loops, and we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and here's where we're going to start going around this way. So we're not ever these stitches in between here, in between here, we're not going across those until really the final part to just put in some slip stitches. So that's easy enough. We're going to make loops just like we did on the mesh. So we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to single crochet we're going to make loops and then turn it into a lattice by putting 3 single crochets in the lattice. We're going to single crochet to the middle of the next arch, chain 2, and we're going to skip 2, single crochet the middle of the next arch, And then where we want to end up on this one is we want to end up skipping 3 chains and single crocheting in the middle so that we have a skip 3 chains on the bottom side of this on either side. So we're going to slip stitch into this next stitch. See, there's 3 stitches in this arch. We're going to slip stitch here, and then we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to single crochet into that middle stitch of those 7 single crochets. So what we end up with is 2 chains on the top and 3 chains on the bottom, where that's how that's supposed to look. So we're still going to chain 2, but we're going to skip 3. And let's look at this. We're going to skip 3, but see, we need to get to the middle there. So we're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to slip stitch. Oops, that's a little hard to find. To this stitch, and then we're going to single crochet right here. And so that just makes a loop. We just kind of have a little extra stitch there, and that's fine. We're going to chain 2 and see how that's in the middle stitch of that arch. And we're going to single crochet to the middle stitch of the next arch. Chain 2, skip 2, and single crochet to the middle of the next arch. Chain 2, and single crochet to the middle of the next arch. And here we have, and you'll have more. You'll have 9 arches on the, or you'll have 9 arches on the front, and you'll have 9 to 11 on the back. This is just a mini so that you can see it in frame, which I'm going to give it a chance to focus. So here we are at that funky part. And so slip stitch to the next stitch, and then we're ready to go into the middle of this chain 7. We chain 2 and we skip 3 down here, and this is just to give it a little more stretch, and we're going to be using these this chain 3 down here. We're going to make a real pretty design that'll sit on top of the shoulder and cover your bra strap. So single crochet into the middle of that chain 7, and then we chain 2, and then we skip 3, and so we're just going to slip stitch to this first stitch here, and then we're going to single crochet in the middle stitch of the arch. Okay, and we're going to finish chain 2, and single crochet into the middle of the next arch, chain 2, and then here's where we need to pay attention. Here's our middle, oh, it's hard to see, but here's our middle marker. Remember, we are going to stop. We need to leave this open. And we single crochet in the middle of this arch. Now this is not a round, so we are going to go back around. We're going to turn around, and so we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to put 3 single crochets into every single chain 2 arch or loop that we just made, making a lattice. So let's look at this. See what we did? We started here, we went around, and then we're turning and going back around the other way. And this is how these rounds are done. Or they're rounds, they're not rounds, they are rows. Do not get that mixed up. So we put 3 single crochets in every chain 2 loop, in every chain 2 space. And when we get here, just ignore this. This will not show. Put 3 single crochets in here. And this will just give it a nice stretch. We'll be working with this in the arm, in the sleeve part. So it'll look really pretty. And I know I picked the most obnoxious colors to go together. I did that on purpose. And so just, again, skip over this little slip stitch here, and go right into, see, it won't show. Yours will be all the same color, so it's not going to show at all. And we put 3 single crochets in every chain 2 loop that we just made on the last row, not round. There's a picture showing all of this, but it's kind of easier to see in person. We're just leaving a gap open in the back because we've got to be able to get our heads through this. So we just skip through this, and we're just putting, we're making 3 arches is what we're doing. So 3 arches will be 2 rows. And I will show you the row count here. So this is 2 rows. Okay, so see, here's 1 complete arch. An arch would be our chain 2 loops, and then 3 single crochets, 3 single crochets in every loop, and so that's a complete arch. So we're going to do that 3 times. So what we're going to do here is we're going to chain 1, oh, I'm sorry, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet into this 1, 2, into the 2nd stitch from the hook, and then we're going to, I'm sorry, we're going to chain 2. We're making a partial, this is going to be a partial loop right here. And we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to single crochet into the second stitch from the hook. We're going to chain 2, and then we're going to go into the middle, chain 2 and go into the middle of each of the arches we just made. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to single crochet in the middle of each arch, chain 2, and single crochet in the middle of each arch, which means skipping 2. It's much easier to see once you get to this point because the arches are already there. There's the next one, 2, and we'll go all the way across the row. Like I said, it's a, see, it's a row, not a, it's a row, not a complete round yet. There will be a final round just for the slip stitch. So we chain 2, and we single crochet in the top of the next arch, chain 2, single crochet in the top of the next arch, chain 2, single crochet in the top of the next arch, and then we're here at the end. And so this is exactly like the trim on the bottom. So we need to go into the chain 2, and we need to go into the top of the center of the arch, but then we need that little partial here. So we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet in this very last stitch. So you can either grab this over here, or you can just go in the same one, just to make a little partial loop. So then we're going to turn, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to put 2. This is our partial loop. We're going to put 2 single crochets in here. Mine is a little gappy. Sorry. Chain 1, and we're going to put 2 single crochets into this partial loop. So we're going to have a full loop, a partial loop, and then we're going to finish off with a full loop. Okay, so we just have 2 single crochets into this chain 1 space, and then we put 3 single crochets into all the rest of the chain 1 spaces, just like we did on the back. And I will show you what that looks like from the back. Okay, again, we're at the back, and see, we're leaving this part open right here because a button's going to go here, and this will make it wide enough so we can get our head through, and then when we button it, it'll be higher up on our necks. Now, if you have a really long neck, you could repeat 2 more rows if you wanted and make it higher on the neck. There isn't a limit to how many of these rows. They just have to be done in sets of 2, because you've got to have your loops, you've got to have made your loops, and then you have to go back and single crochet, put 3 single crochets in every loop that you just made. So it's a 2-pass lattice stitch, really, is all it is. And then let's keep going, put 3 single crochets in every loop, and you will have these loops, you will have like 18 to 20, 18, 9, yeah, 18 to 20 of these loops around your neck, and that's about what is needed to get most people's heads through, most people's heads through. And it is a loose collar, and that's okay. I don't like anything tight, and so remember we made this kind of partial loop, so find that. It's 2 crochets, put 2 single crochets into that. We made that little partial loop. Okay, so we have one more round. We have two sets of lattice. We have 1, 2, and so we have, well, not one more round, we have 2 more rows. And so this just builds up like this, see, in the back, and will be, and these make, you won't have to make buttonholes because these are a buttonhole. But let's finish this. Chain 1 and chain 2, and then turn it over, and you're going to skip 2. This is the same as a turning chain. And you're going to skip 2 and single crochet into the middle of the next arch, chain 2, and single crochet in the middle of the next arch, chain 2, and single crochet in the middle of the next arch, chain 2, single crochet in the middle of the next arch, chain 2, single crochet in the next arch, chain 2, okay, and continue on. And I'm not going to pause this just because this is a smaller one, obviously, and we're going really fast. It's just kind of a mini one that you can see on screen, but I'll show you. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I will show you real quick. Okay, so we're back around. See, we left all of this alone, and we're back around to the other side of the row. See, we're leaving this alone, and we chain 2, and then we skip 2 and we single crochet into this very last stitch. Now you can go either before or after this loop. It doesn't matter, whichever one you choose, because we will be slip stitching right along here in the very last. The last one will actually be an entire round. Okay, so then we chain 2. See how this is nice and square and goes straight up? Or we chain 1, I'm sorry, and we turn it, and then we put 3 single crochets. And so this is in the chain 2 loop. This is exactly what we did on the bottom trim. I mean, exactly. Everything is the same. So you've already done this once, so don't get confused just because it's going partway around a collar. It doesn't mean that it's done any differently. The lattice is done exactly the same, and so we're putting 3 single crochets in every chain 2 loop all the way around, and then we're almost done except for the final slip stitch. We will do a final slip stitch on this to give it a little more structure, and it'll have plenty of stretch. If anything, you guys might feel like it's too loose, but even loose, I've tried them on both ways, and it looks really good. So you won't mind it. You'll like it. It feels good. Mine, the cotton or the acrylic are both really soft, and you're gonna like the way it feels. So, okay, it's not going to be a binding kind of tight thing. It's just going to kind of lay on your neck. It's not going to hug your neck like a higher, like most high collars do. So here's our final loop. It's a full loop, so we're going to put 3 single crochets in it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's double check. Continue. Let me see. I'm double checking to see if we continued on like around there, or if final round. Okay, so except okay, I'm sorry that took a second. I'm just wanting to make sure that what we did was correct. Now, what we're doing is we're single crocheting this is the end of row, this would be the end of row 5. This would be the end of row 5, and we're going to chain 1, and that's just to turn the corner to go down here, and then we're going to slip stitch down the side of this collar, down the inside of this keyhole is what we're going to do. So see this keyhole that we made in the back? Let me flatten this out for you. Sorry about the gap. We're going to slip stitch down here, so we're going to need to pull up 2. These are the horizontal rows just made, and we're going to need to pull for a slip stitch. Try and find two strands. Try and find a full stitch to slip stitch into. And yeah, it's harder than it looks. It's just hard to get my hook in and slip stitch. Okay, and then that's just to finish this off right here. And then we want to slip stitch into the same stitch as we attach to the collar. Slip stitch across here and slip stitch into the same stitch as the other side of the collar, and then work our way up here, slip stitch up here. So I'm going to slip stitch, and so we did 3, 1, 2, 3 slip stitches and chained. On this side we're going to do the same thing on this side. We did 1, and then 2, oops, it's really hard to get into, 2, sorry about that, and then 3, and see, this is where they attach. This isn't really a slip stitch, so we're going to do 3 slip stitches up this side. Then we're going to chain 1 to turn this corner, and then if you look, you could see the first stitch you need to slip stitch into. 1, 2, 3, and it's right there. See how you're at the arch? 1, 2, 3, and it's right there. That's the first one you need to slip stitch into. Okay, and then the only thing you do, that's in an entire round, and then you just keep slip stitching across all the last row you just made, or the last, yeah, row, not round, you just made, and slip stitch across every stitch on this collar. And I'm going to pause it You're going to continue to slip stitch all the way around, and I'm going to pause it and meet you here. Okay, here we are at the beginning of the round where we slip stitch down the side of that keyhole opening, and it'll become a keyhole opening when we put a button on it. We're just not going to need a so continue to slip stitch. See, here's our last arch, our last lattice. Make sure you get all 3 of those slip stitches in, and that's before we chain 1 and slip stitch down the side. So make sure you get all those in, slip stitch into that beginning slip stitch made. You know that's going to be hard. And then cut and tie your yarn. And here's what you'll have. You're going to have slip stitches all the way around the neck. You will have slip stitched down here. You will turn the corner, slip stitch down here, made a keyhole. And this looks really big, but we want it to have an opening like that because we want it to have stretch. And it doesn't matter which side you put it on, you're going to have a loop right here or here. So you can put a button on either side, and you've already got a buttonhole right here. So pick a kind of a big button, and I used for the white one, I used a wood, and the off-white I used a wood, but you could also use a clear one. But just make sure that get a button that fits through here kind of nice and snug, and you will just be buttoning it like that, and this is how it will look in the back. So it's actually going to be very pretty in the back. You could you'll notice that it looks nice from the front or the back. I've like put it on backwards and to take pictures, and it looks like it's on frontwards. So anyhow, pick the kind of button you want. It doesn't matter. I did a clear on my daughter-in-law's, and I did a wood on the one I auctioned off. Both of them look great, but here's what the back looks like. And great job, guys. You're almost finished. After this, you will go to work on the armhole and the sleeves. Thanks.